Welcome to our deep dive into critiquing research.
Oh, exciting.
It's so important to be informed these days,
Right.
especially with just so much information
Yeah.
coming at us from every direction.
Absolutely.
And today, we're going to help equip you to be able to sift through it all.
Right.
Become a pro at evaluating research articles.
It's like having a superpower in this day and age
It really is.
with all this information.
We're going to be using a guide today from Contemporary Nurse,
Okay.
which is aimed at nursing students who are learning to critique research.
Makes sense.
But don't worry,
Yeah.
you don't have to be a healthcare professional
Right.
to get something out of this deep dive.
Sure.
The core principles we're going to be talking about apply to any field that you might be interested in.
Absolutely.
So think of this as your crash course in becoming a more discerning consumer of information.
Like you wouldn't buy a car without looking under the hood first, right?
Exactly.
Same
But
with research.
You got to kick the tires a little bit.
Got to make sure you're getting quality.
And you might be surprised by some of the things that we discover.
Yeah.
For example, did you know that even little things like the title of the article
Oh, interesting.
or the author's credentials can give us clues about how reliable it is?
Yeah, it's like detective work.
It really is.
You're looking for these little hints, and they
Yeah.
reveal so much about the research.
Let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Finding reliable sources.
Right.
It's easy to get lost in the internet
Oh, it's a jungle out there.
when it comes to research.
Yeah, you've got everything from scholarly articles to blog posts to just, rants on social media, all claiming to have the answers.
So how do we even begin to navigate this?
The guide suggests starting with the right databases.
Okay.
Think of these as curated libraries that are specifically designed for research.
So instead of wandering aimlessly through this giant bookstore,
Yeah,
you're heading straight to the section that you're interested in.
exactly. And just like libraries have different sections, there are databases that are specific to different fields of study.
Okay.
Like if you're looking for medical research,
Mhm.
you might start with a database like Medline.
That makes sense.
But the guide also reminds us that even within these special databases,
Okay.
not everything is created equal.
Right.
It's true. Just because something is published doesn't necessarily mean it's true.
Yeah.
It's like browsing through a bookstore and finding a book with like a flashy cover
Uh-huh.
and like a catchy title
Yeah.
might look appealing,
Sure.
but you can't judge a book by its cover,
Right.
You need
Yeah.
to look deeper.
So how do we look deeper? How do we know if a source is actually credible?
One of the main things to look for is whether or not the source has been peer-reviewed.
Ah, yes, peer review.
Yeah.
I've heard that term so many times.
Yeah.
I'm not always sure what it means.
It's basically a quality control measure.
Okay.
Imagine you've written a research paper.
Yeah.
And before you can share it with the world,
Mhm.
you have to submit it to a panel of experts in your field.
Interesting.
And they scrutinize your methods, your analysis, your
Fine.
conclusions, everything.
So they're like the toughest critics.
Exactly. And if they find any flaws or inconsistencies, they send it back to you for revisions.
Okay.
Only after it meets these really rigorous standards
Uh-huh.
can it then be published.
I see.
That's why peer-reviewed sources are generally considered more trustworthy.
Yeah.
Because they've gone through this extra layer of scrutiny.
It's like a team of fact checkers.
Exactly. It adds a level of accountability and
Yeah.
rigor to the research.
Okay, so we found a peer-reviewed article in a reputable database.
Yeah,
Are we good? Can we just take the information as, like, the truth?
not so fast.
Yeah.
The guide reminds us that even with these peer-reviewed sources,
Uh-huh.
we still need to be critical thinkers.
I see where you're going with this.
Yeah.
It's like trust but verify.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to remember that research is always evolving.
Right.
New discoveries are being made
Yeah.
all the time. And what might have been considered true 5 years ago
Uh-huh.
might be outdated today.
So it's not just about finding a good source.
Right.
It's about understanding that research is an ongoing conversation.
Precisely.
Right.
We need to be aware of the publication date and consider how the field might have evolved since the research was actually conducted.
It's like reading a history book. You have to understand the context of
Exactly.
what was written.
We need to be able to connect the research to the bigger picture
Right.
to see how it fits into, the current state of knowledge.
Okay, so we talked about finding good sources.
Yes.
We've talked about the importance of peer review.
Yeah.
What's next on the checklist?
Let's talk about the publication itself.
Okay.
Even if an article comes from, a seemingly credible source,
Uh-huh.
there are still some important questions to ask about the publication
Okay.
as a whole.
So here's where we put on our detective hats again.
Exactly.
Yeah.
One of the things to consider is the publication's target audience.
Okay.
Is it aimed at a specific professional group,
Right.
like nurses or doctors, or is it intended for, like, a broader audience?
Because that would affect how the information is presented.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We need to be aware of who the intended audience is and how that might shape the content.
So target audience is one thing.
Right.
What else?
It's also important to think about the publication's
Yeah.
overall approach to research.
Oh.
Does it tend to favor a particular research methodology,
Yeah.
like quantitative or qualitative research?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
Because it's like realizing that a news source might have a certain political lean.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not that one perspective is bad, but we need to be aware of those biases
Right.
so that we can take them into account. And don't forget about the publication date. It's worth considering if an article is current or if it's an older piece.
Yeah.
Sometimes those older pieces
Right.
are considered like seminal works,
Yeah.
meaning they were so groundbreaking that they're still relevant today.
Right. Even decades later. It's
Exactly.
like a classic novel.
Exactly.
That's still worth reading.
But even with those classics, we need to be aware of how the field might have evolved since then.
Okay, so we've covered choosing good sources,
Right.
looking critically at the publication itself.
Yes.
But what about the research article itself?
Right.
Where do we even begin to dissect something that can feel really dense and complicated?
Don't worry. The guide gives us a really helpful roadmap.
Okay.
It breaks down each section of a research article step by step from the title to the reference list.
It's like we have a secret decoder ring
Yeah.
for research.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's start at the very beginning.
Okay.
What do we look for in the title?
Yeah, you would think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Right.
But a good research article title is more than just catchy.
Okay.
It should give you a clear and concise snapshot of the research question.
So it's like a movie trailer.
Exactly.
In just a few words.
It should pique your interest,
Yeah.
but also give you a real sense of what the research is about.
No clickbait titles.
No clickbait.
In serious research.
Exactly.
Okay, so we got the title.
Right.
What about the author?
Yeah.
We really need to pay attention to who wrote the article.
Absolutely.
Okay.
The author's credentials can tell us a lot about their expertise
I mean,
and credibility.
Sure.
Imagine you're looking for financial advice.
Yeah.
You'd probably trust a seasoned financial advisor over someone who just started, dabbling in stocks.
That's a good analogy.
Right.
Okay.
So we want to see if the author has the experience and the knowledge
Right.
to actually back up their research.
So it's like checking their resume to make sure they're qualified.
The guide suggests looking at their bio, their affiliations, their past publications.
Okay.
It's like checking their resume
Got it.
to see if they have the right qualifications for the job.
Yeah, we want to make sure we're getting the information from the best possible source.
Absolutely.
Speaking of which,
Yes?
what about those key words
Oh, yeah.
that are often listed alongside the title and the author?
Right.
What's their purpose?
Keywords are like signposts that point you in the right direction.
Okay.
They quickly summarize the article's main topics,
Uh-huh.
and they help you find more research
Okay.
on the same subject.
So if I'm interested in a particular keyword,
Yeah.
I could use that to find a whole network
Exactly.
of related articles.
It's like following a trail of breadcrumbs.
I'm getting hungry just thinking about all these breadcrumbs.
I know, right?
But before we take a break,
Yeah.
let's talk about the abstract.
Okay.
Is that where things start to get really interesting?
The abstract is like a movie trailer for the research article.
Oh, okay.
It's a condensed version
Uh-huh.
of the whole paper.
Okay.
Gives you a quick overview
Right.
of the research question,
Yeah.
the methods,
Right.
the findings,
Okay.
and the conclusions.
So it's your chance to decide if this article's even worth my time
Exactly.
before I...
It's like reading the back cover of a book
Yeah.
to see if it grabs your attention.
And just like a good movie trailer, a well-written abstract should make me want to see more.
Exactly. Welcome back to our deep dive on critiquing research.
Okay, so we were just talking about the abstract.
Right. Comparing it to, like, a movie trailer, it
Yeah.
gives you a little taste of what's to come
Uh-huh.
without, giving away the whole plot.
Right, but just like a trailer can be misleading.
Oh, absolutely.
Sometimes an abstract
Right.
doesn't quite capture the essence of the research.
Yeah. That's why it's important.
So it's like a sneak peek,
Yeah.
but there's so much more to discover once you actually step inside.
You got to go beyond the abstract
Yeah.
and really dig into that full article.
Okay, so once we've read the abstract and decided,
Yeah.
okay, this is worth exploring,
Right.
where do we go next?
The introduction.
Okay.
It's where the authors set the stage for their research. They lay out the context.
Okay.
They explain why this study is important.
So it's like the opening scene.
Yeah, think of it this way. You're settling into your seat, the lights dim, and the curtains rise.
Okay.
The introduction is that moment where the authors grab your attention.
Gotcha.
And they're like, here's what we're going to explore together.
Okay, so the intro sets the scene.
Right.
What about the literature review?
Ah, yes.
I remember the guide saying that this section shows us that the authors have done their homework.
Exactly.
But what does that actually mean?
Well, the literature review is where the authors demonstrate their knowledge of the existing research on this topic. They're showing us that they're not just, coming up with these ideas out of thin air, but they're building upon a foundation of knowledge.
So they're not reinventing the wheel.
Exactly.
They're adding spokes to it.
They're like, here's what we know so far, and here's where our research fits into the bigger picture.
So it's not just like a random collection.
Right. It's a carefully curated
of sources.
Yes, it's a selection that really supports their research.
Okay.
And a strong literature review also helps us understand why this research is important.
Right.
It highlights those gaps in knowledge
Right.
and shows us where this study fits in.
Yeah. It's like they're saying, hey, we've studied the map.
Yeah.
And here's this territory that's still unexplored.
Yeah, I like that.
Come on this adventure with us.
Yeah, it captures that sense of exploration and discovery that drives good research.
Okay, so we got the intro, the literature review.
Yeah.
And now we get to the aim of the research.
Right. The aim
seems pretty straightforward.
Yeah, they're telling us what they set out to do.
What else is there to consider here?
Well, while it might seem self-explanatory, the aim is actually a really crucial element to scrutinize. It's like the compass guiding the entire study.
Yeah.
So we need to ask ourselves, is it clear?
Okay.
Is it focused and specific?
Yeah.
Is it even achievable given the methods that they plan to use?
So a vague or overly ambitious aim could be like a red flag?
Exactly. It's like setting off on a journey without a clear destination in mind.
Right.
You might end up somewhere interesting, but you're unlikely to reach, your intended goal.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got our compass, we got our destination in sight.
Right.
Now we need to know how we're getting there.
Yes.
That's where the method section comes in.
The method section is like the blueprint for the research. It tells us exactly how the study was designed.
Right, the nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
Step by step.
Yeah.
The guide really emphasizes this section.
It is important.
Why is it so important?
Because understanding the methods allows you to judge
Okay.
the reliability of the research.
Yeah.
Think about it. You wouldn't trust a cake recipe that didn't list the ingredients or the baking time, would you?
No way. I need to know exactly what goes in.
Exactly.
How long to bake it.
The same goes for research.
If I want it to turn out right.
The methods section tells us the ingredients, the baking time, and all the crucial steps in between.
So we're looking for transparency.
Yes.
And clarity.
See, clarity.
The method section.
We want to know exactly what the researchers did so we can evaluate if it was done correctly.
Right. So we're looking for enough detail so that another researcher could, replicate the study.
Exactly. Replicability.
And get similar results.
It's a hallmark of good science.
Okay, so we check the blueprint.
Yeah.
We feel confident in the methods.
Yes.
Now, this is where we finally get to see the results.
The data analysis section, sometimes it's called the results or findings. Yeah. That's where the authors present their data and they explain what they discovered.
It's like opening up a treasure chest.
Yes.
And seeing all the jewels that the researchers have unearthed.
And just like with jewels, we need to be able to assess their value.
Okay.
Are the findings meaningful? Are they statistically significant?
Okay.
Do they actually answer the research question?
So our critical thinking skills...
It comes into play big time.
We're not just taking the results at face value.
Right.
We're evaluating them.
Yes.
In light of the methods and the research question.
Exactly.
Now, the guide also mentioned that this section might look different depending on the type of research.
Of course.
Can you elaborate on that?
So if it's quantitative research, it's all about numbers, statistics, and objective measurements.
Okay.
But if it's qualitative research, which is more about exploring, experiences and perspectives, the findings might be presented through themes and patterns that they've identified in interviews or observations.
So it's less about crunching numbers and more about analyzing narratives and
Right.
meaning.
It's like the difference between a spreadsheet and a storybook.
I like that.
Both can be really valuable sources of information,
Yeah.
but they present that information in different ways.
Okay, so we've analyzed the data.
Yes.
We've assessed the findings.
Right.
What comes next?
The discussion section.
Okay.
This is where things start to get really interesting, because this is where the authors go beyond just reporting the results, and they start to really explore the implications of their findings.
It's like the so what moment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
They're connecting their findings back to the research question.
Okay.
The existing literature, any theoretical frameworks they might have used. They might also point out limitations of the study.
Okay.
Or even suggest directions for future research.
So they're placing the research within like a larger context.
Exactly.
Showing how it contributes.
It's like fitting a piece into a puzzle.
To our understanding.
The research might not complete the picture.
Right.
But it adds an important element.
Okay, so we've had our discussion.
Right.
We've considered the implications.
Yes.
What's the final act?
The conclusion, of course.
In this research drama.
This is where the authors neatly tie everything together.
Okay.
And summarize the main takeaways.
It's like the closing arguments.
Yes.
In a court case.
Exactly.
They're making their final plea.
Right. Reminding us why their research matters.
And just like with closing arguments.
Yes.
We, the jury, need to weigh the evidence and reach our own verdict.
Exactly.
Did they make their case?
Do their conclusions make sense?
Yeah.
Based on the evidence they've presented?
If so, what do we do with this new knowledge?
That's where the reference list comes in.
Ah, yes, the reference list.
That often overlooked section at the very end of the article.
It's just a list of sources. What's so special about that?
The reference list is like a treasure map.
Okay.
For anyone who wants to dig deeper into the topic.
So it's not just about giving credit.
Right.
It's about providing a path.
Yes, a gateway to a whole world of knowledge.
For further exploration.
Exactly.
And it also allows us to verify that the author's claims
we can follow their footsteps, see what sources they used.
Are actually true.
And make our own judgments.
So it's not about blindly trusting the authors. It's about being able to verify the information for ourselves.
Exactly.
That's a powerful reminder that we are all active participants.
Yes.
In this research process.
You got it.
We're not just passive consumers of information.
We can question, we can explore, we can discover.
Yeah. Wow, we're already back for the final part of our deep dive into critiquing research.
Time flies when you're having fun with research, right?
It really does.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much ground we've covered already, you know.
We've been all over the map.
Talking about finding reliable sources.
Yes.
And then like breaking down each section of a research article.
Like pros.
But before we wrap things up, I wanted to circle back to something you mentioned earlier.
Okay.
Which is this idea that critiquing research is like an ongoing process.
It is.
It's not like we learn these skills and then we're like, done.
It's more like learning a new language, you know?
Okay.
You start with the basics, but the real mastery comes with practice and immersion.
So it's not about like reaching some endpoint where I'm like an expert now.
It's a journey.
It's
a lifelong journey.
Continually honing our skills.
Of discovery and critical thinking.
And that's such an empowering message.
It is.
Because it means that no matter where we are in our research journey, there's always more to learn.
Always
more to explore.
More to question.
More to question, exactly.
Yeah, it's about cultivating that mindset of curiosity.
Right.
And a willingness to really engage with information. Critically.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a final challenge.
Okay, I like it.
Think about a recent news article or research study that you've come across.
Right.
Maybe it's something you saw on social media or in a magazine. Now put on your detective hat.
Put it on.
And apply some of the questions we've talked about today.
Right.
Where did this information come from?
Exactly.
What are the author's credentials?
Right.
Did they use reliable methods?
Are
their conclusions actually supported?
Yeah.
By the evidence?
These are the questions.
By asking those questions, you're not just passively absorbing information.
You're actively engaging with it.
You're actually engaging with it and shaping.
And shaping your own understanding.
Your own understanding?
Of the world.
Of the world.
It's about becoming an informed and empowered citizen.
Right. Being able to navigate.
Capable of navigating all the complexities.
All the complexities.
Of our information-rich world.
Because in the end, It's not just about understanding research.
Right.
It's about using that understanding to make
Yeah.
better decisions.
Yes.
To advocate for what we believe in.
To shape a better future.
And to shape a better future.
Beautifully said.
Thanks for joining us.
This has been fun.
On this journey.
I've enjoyed it.
Keep those critical thinking skills sharp.
Keep 'em sharp.
And we'll see you next time for another deep dive.
Sounds good.
Into the world of knowledge and ideas.